there's a way for you to give feedback.
Yeah.
But people immediately take it personally, and they think that you're just like trying to attack them, and then they immediately get super defensive about it. If I had done that over the summer, like, I don't think I would have gotten a return offer. You have to be able to take that and be like, okay, now that I've gotten this feedback, how do I make a change and move on from that? And I think as college students, if you're not ready to take that and take the feedback less personally, it's really going to be hard when you go into a professional environment. It's just not going to be good for you.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Unhireable, your podcast for an honest take on early career. I'm Miley Sue, one of the producers, and today I'm in the studio with Matt and Neha, one of our former gesture interns. Neha is a sophomore and recently declared an econ, and we've had the pleasure of working with her all of her freshman year. So now she's come back to share some of her experiences that she's had since then.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you for coming back. You're kind of like a rock star, actually, on our team. We're like, yeah, maybe we should talk to Neha about that, because we saw you last year. We saw your potential, which is one of the reasons we were liked working with you so much last year. But then you go away for the summer and come back with literally rock star internship stories. So we're going to get to all of that. But I just want some people to know about you a little bit. So this is your second year at UW.
Yes.
Yep. And you came in, you're declared now in econ, but you were last year pre-major, pre-social sciences. Did your pathway to the UW sort of feel natural? Did it kind of unfold the way you expected?
I mean, I don't want to say yes fully. I think there were, of course, some like ups and downs. There was some, like at one point I even debated, like, is econ something that I see as like worth investing in? Like, would I even want to major in this? So I kind of had to sit down and like decide, like, and reflect on, like, hey, this is what I've done so far. These are the classes I've taken. These are the experiences that I've had. Do I really see myself in this, you could say, role, I guess? And I realized that, like, despite, like, the challenges or hardships I've faced, like, I do still want to pursue it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So this is where it starts to get fun, where we get to rockstar Neha, is there's something about landing a great internship that fundamentally changes students' trajectory. We've seen the data on this. Students who have internships just have so much more success after college. I've worked with a lot of students who have struggled, who have had underwhelming internships. Sometimes people are like, any internship is good. I don't know if all internships are equal. But to me, you got A, really good internship. B, you got it really early. You had it the summer between your freshman and sophomore year.
Yeah.
So let's just start off. What can you talk about? Like, what was the internship? Where was it at? What were you doing?
It was in California. It was in the Bay Area specifically. It was for a semiconductor company that was a startup, and now they've gone public. And it was around 8 weeks. It was a little shorter just because I'm on the the quarter system versus basically every other student was on the semester system. So I came in a little later.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay. And everyone's going to know, how did you get that as a first-year student? Like, how did you land this amazing internship?
That was the first question I got by the interns who found out that I am a freshman itself. It was like, how did you get this? How are you here? But just speaking on a little bit from the past is essentially my senior year of high school, our school had a program where if you finish your credits early, you essentially can enroll in this internship program, which counts as credits rather than taking like 2 extra classes.
Right.
So usually like a student would take 7 classes in high school, for example. I only took 4. Because it counted for 2 classes, and then I just had like an open period, which was really nice. I mean, I had such an open like last year. It was a lot of fun. And so I was wondering, where do I work? Because I knew I was interested in business, but I didn't know like what specifically I want to do with business. And I had a friend who had also gone to that high school 4-ish years ago, and she had also done the same program. So I reached out to her, and I was like, hey, do you have maybe like 5 to 10 minutes just to chat? And so I reached out to her. I asked her like, how did it work for you? What did you think? Do you think it was beneficial? Is it worth doing? And she said that it was a lot of fun. And she, in fact, by the end of the call, she essentially said, I can reach out to my old boss and put you in contact and see if we can get an interview with you. I mean, as a senior in high school, like, it's very hard to network because it's like you're from morning to night, you're in school. Then you might do a sport, which I did in my case. And then you go home, you do your homework, you go to sleep. And the process repeats. There's no like opportunity, for example, like in college where like you have those internship fairs, there are events. And so it was a lot of like, you have to figure it out on your own. And so once I got in contact with the boss, I had my interview. It went fortunately really well, and he hired me as a marketing intern. One of my last roles as an intern was essentially, unfortunately, the company wasn't doing the best in terms of like financials. And so he asked me to set up a call with a company that's recently gone public and ask them to speak about their experience and how they made it so far. And so that's exactly what I did. I set up a call. I reached out to a CEO of the same company that I interned for. We went through the whole meeting, the process, and then when I was talking to him at the end, he was like, hey, like this was a great opportunity for me to get to know you. Would you be interested in applying to the company? If you are, you should reach out. We do take college students.
Yeah.
And so that's basically how I got it.
Okay. So there is a go-getter aspect to you that I'm going to say is unique, but it's not something that other people can't do, right? Like put yourself out there. We've had other guests on this podcast, folks from startups and other places in industry that say the exact same thing. Like don't let any opportunity go sort of unsearched or left to just sit. Like you don't act passively around that. So,
no, I think the important thing is just like not hesitating to ask, because there's no harm in trying. Like, I mean, the worst they can do is say no, right?
Yeah.
At least then you know, you're confident that you tried your best.
Yeah. One thing that really stood out working with you all of last year is that one of the things that really amazing interns do, in my opinion, is take feedback and act on it. So there's already this really great, ambitious, and opportunistic version of Neha. And then when we were working with you, we were so fortunate to see how quickly you would ask for and take on feedback and then change behavior because of that in a way that really stood out. And actually, some of your other interns were great interns because of that same tendency. I'm wondering if that manifested at all when you were down in the Bay Area doing your actual internship. Like, did that intern or the feedback cycle of taking feedback, acting on it, changing behavior, did that benefit you in that role?
Oh, yeah. I definitely think, I mean, the first thing is like being open-minded, of course. Because when I went there, like I myself wasn't sure like what my projects are specifically going to look like. Am I working with other interns, or am I the only one within this role? And so I think I lacked a little bit of clarity in that aspect, which is what, in a way, I guess made it more fun, because I was like, oh, this is so new to me and I have no idea what's going to happen. But, you know, I might as well try my best and have fun with it. And then I think when I got there, I think I had a really great experience just because my manager was amazing. I think genuinely I think I couldn't have asked for a better manager. I think she did a great job of just like giving me feedback, but then also supporting me and like providing me with the guidance that I needed. And I think she was very patient and flexible, as well as understanding that I'm a freshman. So a lot of the times, like there were other interns who were seniors. They had a lot more experience than me, of course. They were coming in from their past internships where they had like so much experience with Excel, for example, which is something small, but it's something in this day, like you have to be able to use Excel. And of course, in school, they're not sitting and teaching you, here's how you use Excel. That's something you're going to have to figure out on your own. And so I think the big thing for me, which also showed them that I'm curious and I want to be there, was every night I'd go home, I'd maybe watch a few minutes on how to do something small in Excel, and I'd come back and be like, hey, I learned how to do this. Is there also a faster way to do it? Because my manager was called like the god of Excel at the company. I mean, like when I tell you like the stuff that she did was insane with it. So I think another thing is just like making it very clear that I want to learn. And so then they also know that, okay, like she is a curious student. She wants to be here. Then of course I want to help you. I think it goes both ways.
Yeah. You mentioned other interns with more experience. Sometimes we talk about the symptoms of like imposter syndrome. Like, did you always feel like you belonged there, or did you have to kind of make that space?
If I'm going to be so honest, I think the first 2 weeks were extremely hard for me, just because I was also like, I've never lived on my own, and I was on my own for the first time. My parents, like I'm from Seattle, so like my parents were here. I was in California. It's like as much as you can call them, it's different from like just coming home, and like if you need to rant to someone, like they were there, they're all of a sudden they're not there essentially. And so I think it was definitely hard for me in that aspect. And I did not know the interns very well because they had been there 5 weeks before me. And so they kind of had already formed their own groups. And so I was kind of just like the newcomer who was just there. And they were extremely nice and welcoming, don't get me wrong. But I could tell like they already knew each other, and they were just like, they kind of had their groups. So I was like, would I even fit in here in the beginning? But I think the nice thing, actually, I think the main thing that you could say it saved me was our seating chart essentially changed, because the day I came into work for the first time was when they finally moved into the new office building.
Okay.
And so it was kind of all over the place. They didn't know where they were going to seat everyone. And then by the end of the 2 weeks, they'd kind of figured it out. And I sat like across from my manager and then also next to 3 other interns. And once I started to get to know them, it was just a lot more fun and easy, because rather than having to also go to my manager for every small question that I had, I could go to them.
So good.
So.
Okay, so you've overcome the imposter syndrome. The seating chart has you right across from your manager, the god of Excel. You had just spent your first year in college, and then you're in this high-stakes environment. One of the things we always talked about, and I know we mentioned this a lot when we were working with you as an intern, is this concept of identity, right? And one of the things employers often tell us is, yeah, I need someone who's a professional, not a student. I just can tell that you already had such a burgeoning professional identity even in your first year here. But how did that identity develop now that you're in this internship, in a company, across this aisle from the seat from your manager? Where did the Neha professional embodiment go from that point on?
I think the main area was just being able to learn from others. And I think with that also was just like small things, like sitting in on meetings from like, the nice thing was I got to do cross-functional work. So I just didn't stay in my area. For example, one of my last projects was like accounting based, which is obviously not my area of expertise, but I had like a week left. I was like, I finished my projects and I wanted to take on something rather than just obviously having a week to kind of do not much.
Yeah.
And so I met with like a member in the finance team department, and he kind of taught me everything, walked me through stuff, and I got to work on that. And I think just like trying something new and constantly being thrown into this environment where like it might be hard, but it's also like that's the best way to grow was kind of how I developed more of like my identity, you could say.
And are you going back there? Have they?
Yes, I am. Thankfully.
So you've already been asked back. Wow. So again, I've worked with a lot of students who, A, aren't doing internships until sometimes, say, sophomore, junior, sometimes even senior year, and then oftentimes don't get asked back. You already have a trajectory that's just completely different. So, A, you are a beacon of hope, I'm hoping, for a lot of students. But some of the things are, what can students do to sort of – now you had some things just luckily that fell into place.
Of course.
But so much of this is off of you. So let's say you met an incoming first-year student. And they're like, Neha, you have had an amazing professional trajectory. What sort of advice would you give them?
I think the biggest advice, which is what I learned this summer, was you don't have to look for like the top 10 companies. I think especially being in the Seattle area where we have like Amazon, Google, Apple, et cetera, it's like everyone's like, I want my internship there. Like I need to make sure like I'm an intern at Amazon or Microsoft by the time like I graduate so I can get my full-time offer back, because that's the best way to have like, you know, a steady income and then, you know, on and on, which is great, which is important, don't get me wrong. But I think a lot of the times when I talk to my other friends, for example, or even the interns that I worked with, and they'd worked in some of the big companies, it's not the hype. Like it's hyped up to say the least, I think. I think the main thing is I think you can grow like vertically and then also horizontally, right, at a company. And for me, at least, when you grow horizontally, that's being able to take on more roles that might not be in your area of expertise. But I think that's the best way to learn, right? I think the big thing that I've gotten and like what I've heard from others, especially from like those big companies, is that you're growing vertically. You might start off as just like a general like analyst position, and then you go up and then you become a PM, for example, or on, which is great because you stick to that one area that you might be interested in. But I like new challenges. Like I don't like to get too comfortable because then that becomes a little boring for me personally. And I think being able to work at a startup company where, I mean, they're not startup anymore, of course, but they're a smaller company. And so they enjoy, like they like it when people take on more like roles. They're looking for people who are like interested in helping out in any way that they can. And honestly, when I saw the way that everyone was so motivated and genuinely interested in the work that they do at the company, it made me more motivated to be there. Because because it's like you're surrounding yourself with people who are, of course, super smart and extremely motivated and very talented. But at the same time, it's like you're seeing like people run into meetings and they're always laughing and smiling and talking and discussing something or the other that might be technical that I might not understand.
Sure.
But just being in that kind of like an environment itself was so motivating.
That's so good to hear. So you remember working with Gesture, we have these 3 principles we always fall back on, which is mission, story, and challenge.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling this amazing story of the work and who you were and what that meant. And I'm hearing in that sort of the way that you were challenged to grow and how you sought out challenge. Mission, for those of us who have listened to the podcast in the past, people can reflect like our shorthand way of like, it's not about you, like you're solving someone else's problem.
Mm-hmm.
How did that manifest for you when you were working at the company?
So I think when I realized like the importance of problem solving was we had a hackathon where we took a break from all the projects that as interns were working on for like 2 days, and we got put into like groups of 6 to 7, and you had 24 hours to come up with an idea, and then you're pitching it to 3 of the founders by the end, like the next day in the afternoon.
Okay.
So pretty high stakes.
Yeah.
And then like the winner could have like lunch with them. So of course they motivated us by having like prizes, for example. And this company is, of course, very technical because they are into like it's the semiconductor industry, of course. I came in with a non-technical background. It's business/econ, and most of the people I knew were engineers. But the funny thing is when we got placed into our groups, we were the only non-technical team. So we were like, what do we do? Because everyone was like, I'll build this robot, I'll make this machine, I'll code something. And none of us really had that background to be able to do that. So we kind of sat down and we said, it doesn't have to be a big problem, but what's a problem that we face that we think that can help the company be better? And the first thing we thought of was the onboarding experience. Because the company is so small and they're still rather new to the whole process of like taking on so many individuals when they're hiring, their onboarding process is a little messy.
Okay.
On top of that, we realized that when you come in, it's such a great industry, but at the same time, if you're coming in with a non-technical background, you feel so lost. And that's exactly how I felt when I first came in because, of course, I was reading up on the company as soon as I got the role to make sure, like, of course, I know what they're doing when I come in, but you don't understand how those chips are being made. You don't understand the technical aspects of that. And so I would have, like, these almost daily meetings with the sales engineers because in this company specifically, you have to have or they would like you to have an engineering background if you're going into sales because you got to know how the product works,
right.
Of course. And so we decided for our project or product, we were essentially going to have something called it was like an onboarding experience that is faster and better. And so what it was that we created a website essentially, and one of the girls we worked with was like a designer, and so we had it like in a way that I think we had the advantage that she could make it look all nice and pretty, which I think is one of the reasons why we were like we won the second place. But we sat down and we thought, what's a simple problem that we can solve? And then we broke it down into key areas that we can focus on and making sure that's feasible and realistic because, of course, we only have like a day to work on it. And then when we pitched it, I think the main reason, at least when they were giving us advice and feedback as to why we won, was 3 things. The first thing is that a lot of people had these huge, great ideas that were so complex that they didn't even know what they were trying to get at. And then the second thing was that we were very clear that we genuinely wanted to do this because we all had faced this as individuals who would come in as interns, as in like no technical background, not knowing like as much of how the product works as another individual would. And so I think that's kind of when I realized like you have to know like what's the problem you're solving, and then after that everything will fall into place.
Yeah. And did you get some of that from your time with Gesture?
Oh yeah.
That's great. You did bring up, technical, non-technical background, business, econ. Technically, when you got this, you weren't in a major, you were just pre-social sciences.
Yeah.
What is your view, and again, safe space, you can say anything you want. What is your view on like the importance of major or courses?
I think more than like major, it depends on the courses that you take is what I'm starting to realize, which sounds a little funny because in certain, like for Foster, for example, like you cannot take their classes without being in the Foster major, right? Which is why so many individuals do like a business minor instead, such as like me.
Yeah.
But I think it really depends on what you want to do. And I think especially with AI nowadays, what I've realized is you better have like like speaking a little more harshly, you better have a specific area that you want to focus on, because all the high level, like general help that you can provide for a company, that can be done with ChatGPT with the help of like an intern, for example, And so I think I realized that too, because I'm in a consulting club right now. And like, of course, we're going into an industry that we don't really know much about and then giving them advice, which is hard. It's like, how do you, like right now I'm consulting for a basketball company, and it's like, how do I go in and tell them what to do with their company when I don't understand basketball? I've never been like a fan. I've never watched it.
Okay.
I don't think I will, but like it's hard. And so it's like when you're looking at these very high level big roles, I'm starting to realize like how beneficial is that to a company? It's like they can do that same thing if they looked it up online. Right. And so I think where really an individual would stand out is kind of understanding, what specific area do I want to dive into? And I know that's hard because it's like at 18, how are you supposed to know what you want to do? Like, I don't know what I want to do, but I think it's more of just going along with like, I kind of just like, what do you not want to do? And then go from there, right? Because if you're confident in what you don't want to do, and for me, that was science. I knew I don't like science. I don't want to go into that. And so it left me, like, for example, like med school was out of the option, like a lot of STEM jobs out of the option. And so then based on that, I kind of like realized like, hey, maybe business isn't one of my interests. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. You mentioned AI, and you know that Gesture tried to make sure that students had some experience with AI, and we've taken even bigger steps with that.
It was so beneficial. I mean, they want you to use AI in these companies. I'm going to be so honest. It's like they'd be shocked if you weren't using. My manager every day used AI. And it's not like she doesn't know how to do her job. It just essentially served as like a tool for her. And that's exactly how I used it too in Gesture. And being able to understand how to use AI correctly is so beneficial, because when I walked into that company, I was much more confident when they were like, hey, you can use like this AI or that AI. And they were like, do you need help with it? And I was like, no, I got it actually.
Yeah.
And so.
Okay, let's unpack that term, use AI correctly. We know just statistically from ChatGPT and OpenAI that there are tens of thousands of registered UW students who use AI all the time. So we know UW students are using ChatGPT all the time. Do you think, since you've had a role now where you were able to use AI to leverage your strengths to actually elevate your work versus what we would kind of call like student use, is that sort of that line between using it correctly and maybe not using it correctly?
I think how we use it as students, if I'm going to be so honest, is just to get the work done for the sake of getting it done. It's
busy
like
work, right?
The busy work. I don't have to think about this. And like if ChatGPT can help me with that, or whatever AI that you use, why not use it? And that's kind of the mindset I have when I use it for a class. Or for example, if I don't understand a concept, I would like put in a screenshot for my textbook and be like, hey, can you break this down for me? Can you break down this problem, et cetera? Can you serve as like a tutor, for example?
Right.
And so that's kind of how we use it more from like a student's perspective. But I think in the professional setting, I think one thing I realized was I did something very simple, and I used ChatGPT the most, being honestly speaking, but I would tell it its role, goal, task, and I'd break it down into those 3 areas. And then I'd give it a lot of context, and I'd say, these are your guidelines, don't go outside of these areas. And then after that, it kind of understood, okay, this is what you want to do. Because if you're not making it clear as to what your goal is, it can give you a lot of like AI jargon that like you might end up using, but it's not going to be the most beneficial.
Right.
And so I think that's what Gesture helped like make me understand, especially when we did the winter quarter project of like, how would you use AI to leverage this poster, for example. I remember working on it for like the early start program. It was just, even then, like I think all the times that I've used AI and kind of figured out, and it's just like you're kind of playing around with it, of like testing its boundaries and seeing this is what works, this is what doesn't work. I think that was very beneficial, proved to be beneficial too.
It's so good to hear, because I feel like that is good news on 2 fronts. One, like the faculty who get really upset about students using AI or ChatGPT to cheat or not do work. I mean, I think we have to reimagine what those experiences are like. And I think the other piece that's huge for me is that you're in this space where you're leveraging it to actually do something that empowers you to put your best foot forward. Whereas we know when students just use it to cheat or write papers, you're definitely not putting your best foot forward. That's how you get jargony M- written papers of
Exactly.
which everyone can see. But versus, I remember that project actually when you did that with us, because when we gave you feedback on it, and actually some of the other gesture interns did amazing, really cool work. And it was so interesting to see that AI elevated what you brought, like how you solved that problem. The end product was better because of AI, because of you, not because you leaned into AI or AI did something for you. It was you.
Yeah, because it's like, I think the main thing I realized is like you need to be able to come up with the idea in the first place, kind of flesh out what you want to do. And then, if you need AI's help, for example, then you use it. And then again, the end product ends up being more, like you could say it's more refined.
Yeah.
It's perfected, I guess. So that way it is, yeah.
So when you're talking about just AI use and in that space, is it hard to go from this, high stakes, growth trajectory company that you're going back to next summer, and then be on this campus where we definitely have some faculty who are like, if you touch AI, you are a horrible person. Mm-hmm. How do you reconcile that? That is tough.
I know it's definitely hard. And I can even give you an example, not even just like in classes, but also even if you're just in a school setting, they just don't like it because the consulting club that I'm working for example, like if you were to do this like at an internship, they would let you use AI, even if you're consulting. But in the club, it's an immediate no. Like you should not use it for anything. It shouldn't help you at all. And so it's just kind of a little contradicting to hear that, where when you like step outside of the bubble of like the school setting, it's all of a sudden it's like you should use AI. You need to use AI. Like I use AI. I love it.
Yeah.
And so it is weird to kind of like understand like this is one perspective, this is the other perspective. It's like, whose side am I on? It's
right.
Yeah.
Do you think gesture was a space where, even though we're in the confines of UW and school, we still try to think about ways for you to engage with AI differently? Was that a helpful middle ground in that?
It helped me think outside of the box too, as to understanding like why it's even beneficial. Because then again, like I mentioned, when I used it for school, it was just to get like check things off.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you have this, and this done. Okay, done. Like I'm done with it. I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to think about it. But it's very different. It's kind of like a back and forth thing when you're using it in a professional setting, especially when we used it with gesture, because it's not just like, okay, hey, do this for me. You turn it in. You never look at it again.
Right.
Everything builds up.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're not understanding and like actually like making sure that the effort you're putting into it is going to end up having a good output, then all your work is going to crumble. It's not even going to be useful at the end of it.
So what are you looking forward to most going back to internship summer 2?
I think the first thing would be seeing my coworkers. I'm really excited. I'm still in contact with my manager. She just had a baby, and so I'm really looking forward to meeting her. And then I think the other thing is just like, it sounds a little, I guess you could say cheesy, but I tell people all the time, like all my friends, like I think this was genuinely like a life-changing summer for me in like the best way possible. And no one really believes that. It's like, how great can it be? And I was like, you won't know until you're in that situation and you realize how much you've grown as an individual. Because I think the growth that I experienced over the summer was just, it was insane. Like I would have never imagined going into this internship that I would have changed so much, whether that be like some of the mindset or like opinions or values that I had. Mm-hmm. But I really think it did like help open the doors for me and make me realize that, it's just like, just because you face maybe a few challenges in the beginning, it doesn't mean that nothing's going to work out for you. So I think the main thing is just like having an open mindset and being willing to grow and take feedback. I think a lot of problems that I realize now when I work with people, whether that be like in a more professional environment or even if I'm working on a project, is if you tell someone something, and there's a way for you to give feedback.
Yeah.
You can give it just be nice with it essentially. But people immediately take it personally and they think that you're just like trying to attack them, and then they immediately get super defensive about it. If I had done that over the summer, I don't think I would have gotten a return offer. Because at times I got a little more harsh feedback if they didn't like something, and it's like you have to be able to take that and be like, okay, now that I've gotten this feedback, how do I make a change and move on from that? And I think as college students, if you're not ready to take that and take the feedback less personally, it's really going to be hard when you go into a professional environment. It's just not going to be good for you.
Yeah. Do you think of feedback as a gift?
Yeah, I have always seen feedback, even if it's not in a professional setting, even if it's something that my friend told me, if like, for example, like, hey, I don't like XYZ, or, it's just, I think the main thing I realized this summer is you can always grow. There's always something more to learn, whether that be about yourself, whether that be about others. The only way to do that is if someone were to tell you. If they're not going to tell you, how else do you learn?
Well, and we did talk about this in Gesture. A lot of times people don't understand, especially students, if you're growing, change is uncomfortable. Challenge is uncomfortable.
Exactly.
It sounds like you learn to sit with that discomfort and actually leverage it to grow, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So last question, go back to mindset, student mindset, professional mindset, student identity, professional identity. It feels like you are wearing both right now. Like you have to be a student. Actually, are you going to finish your UW degree?
Yes.
Okay. Because some people are like, I'm done, I'm out. I mean, that happens, right? They see opportunity, they start to really question whether or not, and I think sometimes those are valid questions. All right, so you're going to finish this. You have these two identities. You have the professional identity that is obviously burgeoning, it's successful and looking forward to the future, and you're still in the student practice because you're still a student. How are you reconciling those two moving forward?
I think it's hard because, like, for example, it's like something as small as like when I came back and I would like fall quarter and I was like studying for exam, I'm thinking like, what even is the point of this exam? Like, what difference is it making? What is it even showing? Like that I can do this many problems in this many minutes, but it's just like, for what? Yeah. And so I think that was something that was very hard to get out of because like when you're doing work in a professional setting, you're always looking at like, how am I doing this? What am I doing this? But why am I doing this? And I think not a lot of people place enough emphasis on that why. And in school, it's more of just how and what are you doing? No one's really asking the why am I learning this? Because, I mean, for example, like if you're taking a math class, like don't get me wrong, it's important, but no one's sitting and doing calculus in like our professional setting unless you're in a very specific field, which... Right. So I think it's very hard to kind of be able to like have both perspectives and both experiences and kind of just figuring out like after that, what do I want to do? Because I have debated, I'm like, what is school giving me? Like, what does it even provide? How is it beneficial? Yeah. But I think how I see it is like rather than looking at it as like the specific moment of like how it's going to be beneficial, I think I look at it more holistically. Good. Like the experiences that I'm getting are definitely, I'm super grateful for that because I know so many individuals don't have these opportunities. And so doing that, I mean, of course, you can take this advice with a grain of salt, but I still think that that's kind of just my mindset right now, if that makes sense.
I think it totally makes sense. I love hearing it. I hope our listeners get a lot out of it because I feel like you are sort of this beacon of hope in a lot of these spaces. I mean, people are talking about how tough the job market is, and sounds like, looking farther afield, being open, being adaptive. There are great opportunities. You found an amazing one. I just can't wait to hear how summer number 2 goes. So maybe we can have you back after that.
Yes, of course.
All right. Well, Neha, thank you so much for joining us today. Best of luck.
Thank you.
We're going to record this and put it out in front of as many students as we can, but wishing you all the best moving forward.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great to have you back.
Want to hear more from Gesture? Check out the rest of the UNHIREABLE podcast on YouTube and Spotify. For even more content, follow us on TikTok and Instagram at gesture_UW.